All right, so welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being here. This is a real treat. Raheen Fatima looked for me, found me. I didn't know who she was. She contacted me on LinkedIn. I am a total sucker for teenagers who are trying to change the world and do amazing things. So of course she hit the jackpot. I got really excited. She and I had a conversation for her podcast. She lives in Pakistan, which is why it's 3 in the morning. And we had some complications with the first date we set because, as you all know, there's been some stuff going on in that part of the world, and it was not easy for her to connect on the original date. So we tried to make sure we could be flexible. We're really, really excited to learn from and with Raheen. And yeah, this is going to be an active one because her plan is, well, I'll let her explain her plan. So Raheen, it's all you, and thank you so much for being a part of or leading a really exciting conversation today.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for that introduction. And I love how you put on the Eid as well. Thank you so much for wishing me a happy Eid, Christina. Yeah, I mean, for me personally, this was like the most perfect way to introduce my project to the world. Like I was just saying backstage, it's like my project is a debutante and my daughter in a debutante ball. So that's how excited I am for this event. But my name is Raheen. I am 17 years old. I'm from and based in Pakistan. Now, I do a lot of different things. So I am a podcaster, I teach, I am a founder of Elenkus. So I'm a social entrepreneur. And I've done many, many things from stand up comedy to theater to oh God, so many things. But what I love the most is to connect with people from around the world. And I just love talking to people and conversing with them. And that's how I got into so many things. And that's how Elenkus also started. So this is a little bit about how it's going to be and what it's going to be about. Basically, I could have just gone with an hour of me talking or a few long minutes of me talking and then people asking questions, but instead, because all my project is Socratic learning and it's about Socratic seminar, so I thought to have seminar with you guys. So to have a conversation with you guys, to have open questions, asking me questions, me asking you questions, and a lot of question asking within yourselves as well. Because essentially that's how you're going to understand the magic of Socratic learning. If you're going to learn about my journey of Socratic learning by learning in that way as well. Now, as for Elenkus, Elenkus is my baby project. I left traditional school when I was just in the seventh grade. I decided to homeschool. I couldn't do that. Then I started to find something that I could do instead. So, an accredited school, and I came across the Socratic experience. They gave me a full scholarship, and that's actually how I got to Google for the first time what Socratic even meant, what Socrates was, because I thought it was some like old Greek things that I knew of, but I didn't really know of either. And then that's how I fell in love with the art of asking questions, learning through asking questions, and learning through dialogue. And that is what Linkus is all about, because I believe that every kid in the world is brilliant. They're amazing in their own way. And, you all are educators. Welcome to everybody that's just joining. With how we're going to lead the conversation, you're going to get to know more about me and about Elenkus as well. So, I think we're good to go. So basically, Elenkus is just about learning how to ask questions, the right questions, because with the way that things are progressing, now I'm 17 years old. I was born the year that the first iPhone came out. And so like people expect me to be really tech savvy, like, oh my God, I know absolutely everything about tech. While my grandma thinks that I do, but I really don't. And I think a lot of things they freak me out about tech. And one thing that particularly does are things like AI or just the way that things are progressing, because we're constantly running in a race and we're expecting the younger generation to do so too, without really stopping and asking ourselves the right questions, asking each other the right questions, and really learning how to learn. Because without having the right skills, of learning and without really asking ourselves and each other the right questions, we're just going to be running in a race. And we all come to a point where we're not going to be at our best, whether that be in our mental state, whether that be in a health state. And I'm not saying that that wasn't me some time ago. Before my diabetes diagnosis, that was how I was as well. Running after so many things and so many things. And I think it was my diagnosis that really got me to stop and ask some tough questions in life. And that's also one of the ways that Elenkus was born. So yes, I love how I talk about Elenkus like it's my actual child. But let's open the floor for some thoughts on what this is. And then I'm going to go ahead with my opening question because I think we have all the people we're going to have here today. You can type in the chat, you can use your voice. The whole point here is to converse. So, anyone that is in the position to, I would love for you to unmute yourself, just say your name, anything you want to say about yourself, and then just tell us your thoughts initially, and then we can get going.
Well, I was always the kid in class who couldn't stand it when there was silence for the poor teacher. So I'll go first. My name is Liza Holland. I am a consultant in Lexington, Kentucky, and I'm happy to have been involved in this What School Could Be community for a while. But I am so incredibly excited to hear more about your thoughts on asking effective questions, because I really think that it's that skill set that is going to be one of the most key moving forward, because not only do we need to create problem solvers and critical thinkers and curious people and lifelong learners, but they also need to be able to ask effective prompts to AI. And so I think that this is absolutely the perfect angle that you're taking here, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your presentation.
I love what you said because you actually hit the spot, because that's one of the things that I have in my list of why we should have a Elenkus, because you need to ask questions even to AI. AI cannot be utilized without asking the right questions. So thank you so much for being here, Liza, and I'm really stoked to be having this seminar with you. So, Andy, I saw you unmute 2 times.
Oh, hi, I'm Andy. I'm from Oregon. So this is a very convenient time for me. I'm at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, not 3 o'clock in the morning. So thank you for being here. I was gonna ask just how to spell Elenkus, and then I answered my own question using the resources that have already been provided to me. So I don't need an answer, but thank you so much for recognizing that I was getting ready to speak.
Yeah, no, I just graduated. So I have like 4 years of experience with kids muting and unmuting, deciding if they want to share into class or not. I know you guys are educators, but still, we all have the same tendencies when it comes to Socratic seminar. So, yes. Now, the opening question that I have, that is that all of you guys, to my understanding, are educators. You guys have taught in one way or another, educated people around you, or worked in education. What is one time that a student taught you something that really stuck with you? Like you still think about it, or if you try to recall, that's the first thing that would come to your mind.
I can actually jump in, Raheen. I'm Josh with What School Could Be, and like Andy, I'm completely stoked to be here with you today. I'm going to answer your question by telling you that Socratic seminar pretty rapidly when I began teaching in 1994, and over the almost 17 years that I taught, became not just a method for teaching, it became my classroom. Every day, all day, it was either we were preparing for seminar, or we were in seminar, or we were reflecting on seminar. And so to answer your question, like it's impossible for me to single out, an individual contribution from a student, because the cumulative contributions of all of us working together in circle to discuss a problem or to deal with a hypothetical or to work our way through a simulation or to deal with, what we call big, hairy problems. The collective learning that was going on is quite extraordinary. And I've been talking with the team here at What School Could Be quite a bit lately about what we call the Willy Wonka golden tickets. I don't know if you know the Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, right? So the Socratic seminar is one of those golden tickets, in my opinion. And it is a process by which you can draw out from students, from young learners, and from the teachers, guides, coach, mentors who are in the room, the best of thinking. And you can learn how to compromise. You can learn how to change your mind and all sorts of things. So my answer is it's just an incredible volume of remarkable things that happened over all those years and all of those discussions taken together that, feel like a sum total of where I am right now.
I can piggyback on that and say that working with small children has taught me a myriad of lessons. And I think the most powerful one is that like littles will really reflected back to me my impulse to control the environment, their experience, what they want, because they so naturally, they don't have as much social filtering for not pushing back. And so they push back. I mean, I think we can probably all nod in agreement, even if we don't have a little one directly in our life. We kind of know that about littles. They're like, why? No, that's what I want. I want to be there. I want to climb that tree. I want to do that thing. And so I'm smiling, feeling that similar feeling, like the cohort of littles, ages 4 to 6, who have taught me so much about how to be a coach and a guide, and not so much a sage on the stage and a teacher, but to be somebody who can, like come alongside a child and navigate with them instead of trying to control their experience, has been hugely powerful for me and absolutely influenced my journey as an educator and where I am today and who I want to be in the future.
We've got a comment from Andy in the chat, but I would love to invite you, Andy, to turn on your mic if you don't mind and share it out loud, just because what's in the chat doesn't translate to the video later, right? Nobody would know that question was posed.
Yeah, right.
Pardon me.
Raheen asked, what's a lesson I learned from a student? And I wrote that my most powerful memories about learning from students came from when they experienced painful failures or when they challenged my practice because they felt frustrated by an experience they had in my classroom. I think it's an essential part of being a human that failure is one of our most powerful teachers. And bearing witness to that is, I don't know, uncomfortable at best when you begin as an educator, and then addictive as you learn how to curate it in a healthy way. So I don't know, I could probably tell a half dozen or zero stories that are more specific than that, but I think when you asked the question, that's what I thought of.
Yeah, that is great. Yeah, go ahead, Ashley.
Hopefully you can hear me all right. I'm outside. But yeah, I had a experience with some students. We're coming up with like service projects and, ideating in the classroom. And a lot of the stuff we'd often done came from like the girls in the classroom on like how they could serve. And this is for middle school, 7th grade and 8th grade students. And then I would always come to the table, like I start with my ideas, which oftentimes like weren't really the ones that would resonate and even like reflect what their needs were for the like community service that they needed. And so this one student, I would have never come to this on my own, but he was real quiet, disengaged in school, but kids looked up to him because he was an amazing skateboarder, right? So his goal was like to be a professional skateboarder. He was skating all the time. And he came to me after school and was, Miss Dos Santos. I'm not really engaged in class, but I really think like getting shoes donated would be huge. Like me and my friends are skating all the time. Our shoes get run down. They're super expensive. We don't have means to buy new ones. And like if we could somehow, on the DL, find a way to have kids be able to come in here and like try on new shoes. And so I would have never come up with that on my own. And this was a student who like wasn't engaged in school, didn't see himself as academic-y. And, we ended up creating this amazing after school program where, you know, kids could come in and get shoes. And yeah, so one story.
You know,
That's
Reem, I
great.
thought about when you said that, I thought about because I did a summer program that was a student entrepreneurship course for high school students. And of course, they all started by thinking that I was going to tell them how to do it. But then within a few days, they were teaching me things. And I mean, there were all kinds of things. I mean, the most interesting one I remember was one of the students at lunch was eating a taco at one time. And he said that it was all falling out, you know. And he said, well, what if I could make an edible wrap that I could put around the taco so that you could eat it and it wouldn't fall out? And I said, well, that's kind of a pretty ambitious project. Are you sure you want to do that? And he said, oh, yeah, I do. So, you know, by the end of the week, he had figured out. Now, basically, I don't know if you know, but the way you make plastics, I don't know if you know that, they do a process of polymerization. They take basic ingredients and they process them in a certain way to make different characteristics. He found out that you can do the same thing with something like organic material, like an apple peel or something, and do a similar process to actually make an edible material. Now, think about that, a high school student coming up with something like that in a week. And there are many others like that too, but it was, and the kids, of course, were really amazed when I would say, well, wow, that's really neat. I didn't know that.
That is amazing. Firstly, I need some of that if that actually exists in the world, because I have an issue with I am a messy eater. But I think that it's great how people think. And actually, the way that I also got introduced to the power of entrepreneurship was that I took a boot camp, and it was amazing. My eyes were like, oh my goodness, so I can earn money and I can help people and I can be this cool tech savvy sort of businesswoman in a red suit, like, you know, what's not to love? So, yeah, I saw Lynn sort of unmute trying to go before. So,
Yep, I'm Lynn. I'm in Grand Rapids. It's dinner time here. Um, I thought your question made me think. I taught for 37 years and there's so much every year that I learn from students. And if you just listen, there's a lot to be learned. But it made me think about the first year that I taught AP language, and I had to teach The Heart of Darkness. And so I did my quick reading of it and probably didn't understand much. So I think that was the beginning of my teaching of using Socratic method because it was so successful. I was good at asking questions. And so I just asked question after question after question, not fully understanding the book. And the kids, that is how I learned to understand that story, their unpacking of it. And I always thought, well, that's a pretty good strategy to go in and not know something too well, because the tendency is to tell people what they should know. And instead, I had the joy of learning from everything, all of their insights and thoughts, and they were highly engaged. So lots of fun.
Can I
yeah,
come back?
that's amazing.
Oh,
Yes, Josh. Yeah.
sorry, Mark, can I come back to your story? I can only imagine what it must have been like for that kid in the moments after you were like, "You sure you want to do this?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then in the next few moments, extending into minutes, into hours, into days, he must have been like, how am I going to do this? He's essentially doing Socratic work with himself by asking himself, how am I going to get this done? How am I going to figure this out? Right?
Well, not only with himself, but what he was doing was networking, and we helped him, you know. So it's like,
Yeah.
here's a question, who might know an answer that would help me? Or, you know, and you go to one person who then teaches you something, who goes to the next person and go to the next person and the next person. And that's how he
Yeah.
figured it out. He went through channels of things like that. And in
Yeah.
the end, he found two or three people that had the pieces of information he needed to put together.
And along the way, his ability to hone the question
Oh,
got
yeah.
better
Oh,
and better and
definitely.
better
Right.
and better. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was all his.
Oh,
I mean, I was just mostly encouraging him and kind of helping him get started. But it was a kind of a Socratic the whole thing was him just really learning from different people and kind of taking one step at a time as he would learn one thing and go to the next thing.
Raheen, that must be just like music to your ears.
Yes, it is. And you asked exactly the question that I was going to ask. So I was like, I love how people are just doing my work here. I love that. So, yeah, for me personally, as a student, I was someone that I loved asking questions and I loved for them to be answered. And I would just always ask why. And the reason that I asked, you guys of like, why do what was the moment that really changed your life? Because a lot of my teachers, a lot of my educators, my guides, they've come up to me with like, you ask those questions that just make you think, and maybe that's also because I have my own podcast and I interviewed people for a while. And I learned all sorts of things from them. But I am someone that and the reason that I left traditional school, so I'm taking this opportunity to sort of tell my story here as well. The reason that I left traditional school was essentially because my questions weren't being answered. I need questions like, why are we taught chemistry when I don't even want to go into that sort of a field? I mean, yeah, there are good answers to those, but I I can never be told, oh yeah, because you just have to. That's something that's just gonna, make me hate learning and hate school. And so, I would be the devil's advocate in the corner. The name to my podcast, so I don't really have a name to the podcast. It started when I was 11 years old, so please just don't judge me for that. You just type in Raheen Fatima on YouTube, and then you find all these amazing things back before I had a glow up. So like real gold in there. So yeah, but that's why I left traditional school. And the reason that I went out and found a school for myself was because I had already gotten into podcasting and into interviews. And I had interviewed some of the best educators out there. And I was like, you tell me here they are teaching kids to build rockets and go into space and talk about their feelings and ask questions and everything. And I just have to be told, like, oh, yeah, because you have to do so. And I was like, no, I'm so sorry. I cannot do this. And I need to find something for myself. And that is when I found the Socratic experience. And I was an exception. They don't give out scholarships, actually, but I was an exception to be given 100% scholarship and to learn at TSE. And that's, I think, where I really learned that I could ask questions and I could really be myself. So, yeah. Now, another question that I have for everybody, and I really want you guys to dig into this, is how comfortable as educators, and I know that this could be like a controversial question, but I love asking those sorts because I'm an interviewer. So how comfortable are educators usually when you guys have to flip the roles? Like if you see a student taking the lead, I mean, I know some people that would be really proud, and some people that would be like, oh, why are you stealing my spotlight? Um, but I just want to know how you guys have felt when you feel that the role flips in class.
I would
Wow,
love
that
to
is a
jump in on this
great
quickly.
question.
Yeah,
Go,
it's a
Jennifer.
wonderful question. You know,
Wow.
I have the advantage of having been taught that way, right? So I was raised and taught that way. So it comes pretty naturally to me to see the educator that way. But I was thinking about this moment. I used to teach the memoir, Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt. And there's a character that they reflect on several times in the chapters where he's writing about his school days. And it's a young man in his class that everybody teased and nicknamed Question Quigley. And Question Quigley always has questions, and all the teacher ever does is get angry, right? All anybody ever does is get angry. And so I think, when I think about what we need to shift in education and, why these new ideas, why your ideas matter and that flip in the role matters, it's because actually Questions Quigley should have been running that class, not the teacher who was quieting him and shutting him up, right? Because he was actually trying to learn.
Wow, I gotta jump in on that, Jennifer. So um Raheen, I taught an economics course. They refer to economics as the dismal science, and there's a reason for that, because it's just a dismal topic. And I had a great time teaching the course, but the school had sort of still required that there be a final exam. And so at the end of the year, I just rebelled and I said, shine it. I'm not going to do a final exam. Instead, I'm going to do a thing, an event that I called Stump Josh. And so I sat there in this circle and told them, bring it on, fire the hardest economic questions you can at me. And I'll see. I felt like I was in a batting cage, like a baseball batting cage. Just fire those questions at me. And they, wow, did it get competitive? All of a sudden, they were just like, what are the hardest questions, you know? And I just kept swinging and swinging until finally I struck out because the questions got so hard. And it was just beautiful. And I'm like, I'm not going to put in a final exam grade or anything like that. This was fantastic, you know? So that's mine, Jennifer. Like, that's my moment through the questions that I got taught what they had learned, basically, which was awesome. Yeah.
I can,
Um,
oh, go
oh,
for it.
go ahead.
That Zoom moment.
Go, go, go.
I'll just say quickly that from the educator position, I can just acknowledge that I have been so triggered and so disturbed and upset, especially with littles, right? Because they're just like, no. That super controlling, you know, like lockstep thing that you had planned for us, we're not doing it. And I would say that was actually a huge part of my learning curve in this decade-long journey that I've been in, is to sit with those feelings that come up. And we know, right? Like we can't react, we can't take it out on them. Even though it may be tempting, and at times we do, and maybe we've all experienced that with, you know, riled up, pissed off teachers. And we know kind of what it feels like to be on the receiving end of a teacher that we have disrupted. I can pull up like fourth grade memories of speaking to your comment, Raheen, about like pushing back and talking back. And I can just say from the educator perspective, like I actually wear that truth as like quite a badge of honor, because the process of working through that was extremely powerful in my life to acknowledge. I feel upset, I feel disturbed, I feel thrown off. I feel, you know, like the coup of 4-year-olds has just overthrown me. And I have been ousted. And what am I going to do about that? And so, yeah, I just share that as like the other perspective, that it's normal to feel all those feelings. And it's the best when we have support and community around that, as opposed to maybe compartmentalizing or letting it build up, becoming that really angry teacher who's taking their stuff out on kids. I think we all know that archetype. None of us want to be that, but without support, it can also be hard. So I'll just add, I've been blessed with a lot of amazing support on that journey.
Yeah,
And
Oh, such a powerful reflection. You know, as teachers, I think instinctively when we first think about this question, we think about how does it make us feel? But I also think it's equally powerful to think about our responsibility to all the little souls that are in our classroom. And then with a loss of control, I think young teachers or emerging teachers fear for the like what's going to happen to the safety that exists for all of the people who are in my room, not just my own intellectual safety. So I think you bring up a really important point, Emma, that like it takes time to develop the skills to facilitate safety in a space that is curious. It's much easier to create a sense of safety in a place that is sure, but not necessarily as productive. Um, so that's a really good point.
yeah, and like the certainty and control. If I have control and I am power over, there's a certainty in that, but there's so many harmful effects. And if we let that go, what's that like Twilight Zone free fall learning journey for all of us? And how supported are we to do that? Yeah,
Well, and
talk
there's
about
this
that forever.
powerful generational aspect to it too. I mean, I like when I went to school pre-internet, the textbook and the teacher had all of this knowledge, had all this control over knowledge that didn't exist anywhere else in the classroom. So a model where that was in control of how classrooms worked made more sense maybe than it does now in an era where the smartest thing in the room sits inside everybody's pocket. It has more answers than I could ever have as a teacher. And for me to sit up and pretend like I should be the center of what like how we're going to answer the questions that we all have, is really like inauthentic to the world that our students live in. And it sort of begs for a flipped classroom model. So, you know, I think there's also I don't know, a technology and history element to this. Though like, I don't know, I kind of always wonder if there was more wisdom in the seats than there was at the head of most classrooms.
I was going to jump into that to say it really depends on the school's culture. If teachers feel like they can show up as the experts who don't know everything, because we're being put in the position where we need to lead the learners in our classrooms. And if the leadership and the style of the school around us understands that the teachers are still going on a learning journey themselves, that they're learning, especially like I was in international school, the cultural differences in being in Brazil versus in India, you're not going to get that in the first 3 weeks of being there. So you have to adjust on this journey. But if the school doesn't support that understanding and expects the teacher to just jump in with everything ready, especially like the model of how they present to students that they understand, it's really confusing for the teacher because you're being the expert on stage, but then in the background, you're going through this personal evolution. So it very much depends on the school culture. And I'm thinking about how with AI and so many future focused schools, we're almost confusing the teachers more than the learners, because we're asking the learners to go ahead and create and lead the conversation, and the teachers are almost getting left behind as like, well, we need PD about how to help the kids. And that's my focus, is all about the educator.
Yeah, you're so right. I think it's all about school culture, and then the way that AI is also evolving. And this is actually what we talked about when Jennifer and I first talked, and we went on like I think more than an hour just talking about education and talking about AI. And I say this with a lot of love, that a lot of the educators that we have, grown-ups that we have, let's say even somebody that's like older than 25, they've seen a lot of evolution in their lives. Even myself, I was born into a time when I couldn't touch on a screen and things would do stuff. I wasn't born into that sort of technology, and it was only later that I figured out, oh, things like this can actually happen around the world. And so it is very challenging to be adapting to those things, especially when you feel like I may be outsmarted by this. I may be just taken over by this. So I think there is a constant fear. And I don't say this that this is just in educators. I think it's in the human race itself. And the reason why I feel like Elenkus is so important is that when things are progressing, we cannot stop things from progressing. We cannot stop kids from writing their essays from AI. We cannot stop these things. The sooner we realize it, the better it is, I think, for everybody, the students, the parents, and the teachers. But I think the most positive approach to all of this is, how do we connect to our inner humanity? And I think the most human thing that we have is learning from each other and asking questions and thinking before answering a question, and then answering questions, and the ums and the buts and the conversation, and speaking over one another accidentally on Zoom and not realizing that you're muted. And then all these things, I think they're just so beautifully human that we need to hold on to them, especially in a time like this. And I think that is why, Elenkus to me was so important. Elenkus actually means, it is the Socratic method of questioning. So it is asking questions to sort of satisfy that little tick of, curiosity in your brain. And I think there's nothing more beautiful than that, because that makes us humans. And humans, I think, are one of the most beautiful beings, because we have an ability of learning and then correcting ourselves and then progressing and changing and evolving in I think personally in a more beautiful way than other beings that I've seen. Maybe because I could talk to you guys. If I could talk to butterflies, then it would be butterflies. But yeah. So I see there are some
Raheen,
comments. Yeah.
can I just add to what you said, that Mel and I were at a conference the last 2 days here in Honolulu, and it was an ed tech conference, but it turned out to be something completely different for us. It was really like a deeper learning conference. And one of the things that we were talking about with other presenters is, and this is a word that I've known all my life, but I've never really explored, or it hasn't entered my state of being in the way that it did just in the last couple of days. And the word is decorum. So coming into conversation with people, understanding that there are protocols and there is a sense of decorum that you bring into situations, which is, Andy and Emma sort of like going, who's going to go first here? That's just like that, as you described, this beautiful human sense of decorum. And that's partly what the educator, coach, guide, mentor can do to create those environments and really have them work, is to help young people develop that sense of decorum so that they can come in and do these kinds of Socratic moments with people, with peers, and have these kinds of conversations and so on.
I mean, to me, Josh, it's a little bit different. I'm kind of naturally an entrepreneur anyway, and so I tend to like Emma, the little kids. I tend to ask the question about why.
Yeah.
And I think of you, Raheen. I think you're a lot like me, because rather than going to what the experts said, you tried to figure out on your own what makes sense to me to do the education. And when you do it that way, then you work toward it, but you work toward it in the context of what's available today, and what information is available today, and what experiences and things are available today. So you come up with something that's different. And I think the key is that too many educators say, I went to school and they told me how to educate. And they go with that rather than asking the question about, well, why do we do it this way or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Mark, it's the fact that experts only know anything, and I say this with love, experts only know anything until thousands, and I think hundreds of thousands, Raheens like myself are going to ask why.
Mm-hmm.
Unless that happens, there's not going to be a movement. It was only after COVID that a lot of people, from educators to parents to students, they created a movement of like, we don't want this. We don't know what this is. Because standardization of education, while it was completely beautiful because it made it more accessible for people that would have not even been educated otherwise, but it destroyed a lot of people that were in the system. And we see these people, and from successful stories, from like Lady Gaga saying that she hates math. Sorry, my examples are like very, teenage examples, so
I love
excuse
your
them.
examples.
But from Lady Gaga saying that she hates math to like, even actors or celebrities or successful people, in an older generation saying that we hated school. Albert Einstein hated school, and he is someone that we're taught about at school all the time. I don't think he would have appreciated that. But I think we need now to just do what our heart says. And, a lot of people have actually asked me, because a lot of my work at Elenkus has been inspired by my time at the Socratic experience, which is a separate business, which is a 4-year high school and a middle school. And a lot of people have asked me, how are they different? And the reason that is firstly, we too hit very different sort of markets. And secondly, if I know that anybody has been inspired by Elenkus and created something of their own, I would want as many people to create as many things that are being inspired by my own idea, because we need that sort of thing in the world. If the standardization isn't working, we can't get the government to just, drop everything and work on this specific thing, no matter how important or urgent it is. But what we can do is, in our personal capacity, help 100, 200 people. And I think that is amazing. And sort of also coming back to what Josh said, I think, yeah, for me at conferences is also how I learned, because I was 10 years old when I started going to different conferences to network with my dad. I love talking to people. See, my dad, that's the only way that he knew to sort of, channel my energies. Like, go talk to people, go. Don't bite our ears off. Please just don't talk our ears off. So, and I started talking to people, and I realized how just the the manners, and that's also something that we studied in class at some point, of like how universal manners of carrying ourselves, they unite us. And I think Emma would be able to weigh in on this very beautifully, because she works with younger kids, and the way they talk and the way teenagers talk and the way that college students talk are just so um beautifully different, because I think they really show evolution of how people learn how to talk and how to converse and carry themselves and explore their ideas and also ask questions.
I can't tell you
Yeah.
how many little babies have said the most profound, beautiful, eloquent, magical, imaginative things. I actually used to carry a tiny little journal around in my pocket, and I would always be so disappointed if I ever forgot to slip it in my pocket. For context, I did nature-based education primarily, so mostly out in the forest kindergarten models with littles, and I had a little pencil, and I would write down what they said. It's somewhere in my back storage, um, something that I will treasure forever because, to your point, they have a really specific way, and of course, I'm, geolocating myself where we were, it would be different all over the globe. But ultimately, that sense of freedom in their speech and their ability to just say what they're thinking in these marvelous ways where you're just like trying not to laugh because you would hate for them to interpret it as laughing at them. But the adult that I was with, constantly, it was like we got the most excellent poker face and it would just go right in the notebook. And sometimes they'd be like, "What are you writing?" Um, yeah.
I would love to ask you a question, Raheen, and I think we've got about 15 minutes left. So we've got an opportunity to wrap up our hour with questions for her about her own experience, about Elenkus. And Raheen, one of my questions, it actually spins off of the discussion we've just been having. At the same time that I liked that term that you were using, Josh, I've been challenged by several Palestinian friends to question the the really important difference between civil dialogue and critical dialogue, meaning that it has to become okay to be critical, because if we're only ever civil, does that mean we never actually get to the meat of it, and actually solve whatever is festering under the surface? So I'm curious, Raheen, that's a big thing to ask you, but I'm curious how you see that. Like, how do we build that culture of critical dialogue and questioning, without obviously becoming hateful and awful and uncivil with each other? If does that make sense? How you see it yourself, and then how you like, do you imagine how Elenkus might include things that are like more controversial where people kind of get locked down?
Yeah, I totally understand this, because for me, I've been asked a lot of questions, about my religion, about where I come from, about so many different things, where I sometimes have to take a moment, like, how do I handle this, and how do I answer this? Um, and for me personally, I think creating the sort of environment in class where you could talk about absolutely everything is so important, where nothing is like, oh, that's a bad thing to say. Yeah, sure, don't swear, but if you're talking about, if you feel passionate about it, talk about abortion rights. If you feel passionate about it, talk about, all the genocides that are happening around the world. If you feel passionate about it, do everything. I remember back in freshman year when I read Ernest Hemingway's White Elephants for the first time in class with everybody. I was like, oh my God, they're talking about such a different thing. That's like a bad thing to talk about. We don't talk about the difficulties and the complexities of a relationship and welcoming a new life. And you don't see that here, at least in Pakistan. I wasn't aware of this. But the reason that we were able to talk about, and over the years, the difficult topics, the difficult conversations that even your parents might not want to have with you, um, answering of who is on the right side in all the genocides that are happening around the world. It is essential to create an environment of love, care, and respect. If you are, and this is one of the top things that I want students to walk away from programs at Elenkus, is learning how to disagree. Because as much as we say it, and this is a concept that has been around for ages, even adults, they get very defensive, like, oh my God, why can't you just accept what we're saying? And we might not say it like it's in the movies, like, oh yeah, no, we don't say it like that, but we say it in little ways, and in little ways we can never make peace with the fact that somebody is disagreeing with us. And I think the most powerful about the learning environment that I want to sort of, cultivate, and also about Socratic seminars, like you can talk about absolutely everything and you can get away with it. And if somebody talks about it, you let them get away with it too. You do not hold on to it. I've never seen a fight in a Socratic seminar. I may see very like passionate arguments, and then they were like, okay, yeah, sure. And then they agree with some parts and they disagree with some. And I think, again, coming back to it, I think that's one of the most human things. And that's a skill that you need in your life, to be okay with things you definitely don't want to be okay with. Yeah.
Nicely put. Let's get some other questions for Raheen.
Yeah, just some other questions, and then I will have like 2-3 minutes to wrap up at the end. So yeah.
Raheen, I'm so curious. Do you have community of peers around you who are as eloquent and thoughtful and rooted in the beliefs that you're sharing, or are you kind of a lone wolf?
So there are two ways to go about this. One is that I tell you, yes, there's so many beautiful people that are around me. No. Here's the thing. I think that everybody is very, very different than I am. Like, I am friends with so many people from so many different backgrounds, but I think I am very different. Like, even when Jennifer met me for the first time, saying, "Are you 17? Are you sure you're 17?" Because that's what people say to me at first. And I think I was always mature because I was the oldest kid and the only cousin and like the only person in the family, basically, for the longest time. And so I think that's what makes me a little bit more mature. But and this is real for me here in Pakistan, when I see people around me, I don't see many people like myself. And by myself, I don't mean exactly doing the things I do, but it is standing up for things they love, building something they're passionate about, or just talking about things they love. I don't see a lot of that, unfortunately. But when I open up my LinkedIn, I see people winning awards. I see people starting businesses. I see people doing such incredible things, that I look at it and I'm like, wow. So yeah, in the community that I was naturally born in, I don't see a lot of people like myself. But in the community that I chose to build, there's so many people like that. And I think one of the reasons that I got to a point where I did was because I started networking with people on Facebook a lot. And by networking, I mean, like when I had science homework back in 7th grade that had something to do with molecules, and I hate like science molecule stuff. And I actually got someone that was a PhD in molecular sciences to be my friend on Facebook. I interviewed her, and then I had her help me with my homework. When I was curious about being an astronaut, I interviewed an NASA astronaut. So I created slowly by slowly this beautiful community that was always there for me to help me and to inspire me in moments when I felt like, where am I born? Why are people not like this? And then I see millions of people that are doing what they love. And it keeps me up at night and also wakes me up in the morning. And I think that's what's important.
Oh my gosh, that is such an amazing one-liner phrase. So beautiful and really great to have you a part of this community. To be in community
Yeah.
with you, rather.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I just have room for like one last question and I have to wrap up.
Does anybody want to ask one last question? Oh, Christina.
Tell us all about Elenkus, because I want to be able to support this and I want to be able to talk to everyone I want to share all of this cool stuff about. So give us the pitch.
Yeah, so basically, the way that things are going, like I said, technologically, and just the sort of chase of the dream with the designer bags and the powerful, boss lady suit and just everything, the race that's put into our minds right from high school, from getting into a good college, good SAT score, then getting into the right master's program, then, finding the right person to, spend the rest of your life. And there's just so many things that are just put into our heads. So we have all these milestones and you have to hit all these milestones. And yes, have these milestones evolved with technology? For sure. So you need to know how to code. No matter what your interests are, you're going to be left behind if you don't know how to. And all these things that I think we just forget to ask ourselves the questions of, what do we really want to do with ourselves? What is it that we want people to see us as? What do we see us as currently? We forget to ask our kids the right questions. We should not be asking them, what do you want to be when you grow up? We should be asking them other questions that may really help them. You know, things like, okay, if you could solve something, what would you solve in the world? What's like one issue that, you know, really just keeps you up and disturbs you to your core? And I think these are things that are really important. And with time, I've realized that the most beautiful thing that could ever come into my life was Socratic seminar, was to learn how to ask questions, how to ask the right questions. Because I remember I used to be so angry with one of my guides because I would have this amazing idea in my head and I would go to her and I would tell her that. And she'd ask me a question and I'm like, oh my God, this question is going to stick with me. And that changes my perspective of everything. And that makes me rethink and rebuild all these beautiful neural pathways in my brain. And that is what curiosity is about, because it's like a little tickle in your brain. And unless you're, you know, doing that to people and then also solving your own, you're not really celebrating yourself as a human, because learning how to learn and making sure that you are an actual lifelong learner, not something that people say in motivational speeches, is the most human thing. I think if you're not celebrating this amazing gift of learning, you're not doing justice to being a human, or being, you know, this amazing, intelligent being. And the reason why Elenkus is a little different from other models that are being followed of Socratic seminar is that Socratic seminar is usually something that people get introduced to in college. When you take that, you know, inevitable life crisis philosophy course, or you know, you take some class, or you take some seminar, or something of the sort, or some lucky people get introduced to in high school. But that is like models like TSE or Acton Academy. They're 4 years of commitment. What I want to give to people are 8 to 10 weeks of. I want to take from them 8 to 10 weeks of their life and give to them, you know, learning how to learn through questions. Because if you just focus on answering like a lot of educators around the world do, you're going to forget the important things. Because there's a beautiful quote that I'm paraphrasing right now because it's like almost 4 a.m. By Socrates. And he said that I cannot teach you anything, I can just make you think. And I think that's all a teacher has to do. And that's all that Elenkus stands for. So right now we have not officially launched. Like I said, this is like Elenkus as a debutee at a debutante ball. So we are not officially launched yet, but when we will be, I would love to, you know, contact you guys somehow, or have, if I'm lucky enough, some platform at What Schools Could Be, so you guys can go check out the website, and all the things that we're going to have on there, and spread the word so we have as many people being introduced to this amazing method as possible. So thank you.
So amazing. We are so thrilled to have had this opportunity. And of course, you dropped the comment, right? I haven't actually talked to Josh and Mel about this, but we've got an invitation or an opportunity to create a community within What School Could Be, that Raheen would be able to facilitate, that could create a space with educators at the very least to have these kinds of conversations and learn these kinds of skills, which I think would be an amazing next step. So Raheen, thank you so much. I know that during the school year, it's normal for you to be up all night, but this is not school year. This is your summer. So we recognize the sacrifice that you've made. Mel, tell us about the next event coming up.
So please save this date. It's Monday, June 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific. We have a group of students from Chile who will be sharing their whole filmmaking process that they went through, from developing the scripts to the filming, the editing, and finally like a little red carpet event that they did. and they partnered with an organization called Making a Difference, or MAD. So that will be posted on our website by tomorrow, and we'll be ready to receive registrations. And that's at whatschoolcouldbe.org/events.
Thank you so much, Mel. Now, Josh, since Ashley dropped off, are you going to do the fist bump? Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
very
yeah. Okay. So,
definitely.
Raheen, you
Yes,
don't necessarily
absolutely.
know about this. Anybody who's not been part of this, you want to explain, Josh?
Yes, we have this tradition, Raheen, about a year old, where on these Zoom calls we take a fist bump group photo. So it's become a what school could be thing. And so if there's anybody who doesn't have their video on, this is the moment to actually turn your video on. But otherwise, we're going to get set up and make sure that your fist is in. 1, 2, 3. Yay! That was a good one.
And
Awesome.
that photo represents the launch of Elenkus into public view among educators. What an honor, honestly, Raheen, to have been able
Yeah.
to be part of your debutante ball for your baby. I mean, a little older than a baby, but you get me. And really, just it's so great to be part of this. I've never done less as a facilitator than I did tonight, which was pretty awesome, because you know how to run the show, and that was pretty, yeah, really just great. So thank you to everyone for being a part of this. This is the point where we all unmute our mics so that Raheen can actually hear us cheer for her.
Yeah. Woo.
Thank you, Raheen. Woo.
Get that red suit.
And let me just add really quick, Jennifer, Raheen, the recording, which will get a what we call a top and a tail, so there'll be a professional front and back. We want that to be a resource for you that you can carry in your suitcase. And so it'll actually be a link that you can take with you. Mel will stay in touch with you about that. And oh boy, the minute you turn 18, which I understand might be later this year, we would love for you to join our online community of educators. And then that's where, Jennifer, the possibility of creating a group, and you can facilitate that group and bring in, we can provide that platform for you. So that's our way of supporting what you're doing. So it's awesome.
Thank you so much, Josh. So I'm turning 18 in August. So it's not that far away. It's
Not
like
far
2
off.
months.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay.
Happy early
We're
birthday.
excited to develop it with you. Definitely.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So Mel, when can I get the link to the recording?
It'll probably take us a couple days. We have a small team and a little bit of a backlog, so we'll make sure to get that to you, and I have your email, so I'll connect with you again to do that.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much, everybody that was here and they actually engaged and they talked. Thank you so much. It was great. And I think I got a lot of things out of my head actually to people through this. Because, I've been thinking a
Good.
lot about Elenkus, but not speaking as much or at all, I think, like out this. So it's great to get some, profound things out there.
That's
Now
awesome.
that
So,
talking
yes.
about it makes it like form more fully sometimes.
I know. It makes it so legitimate. Like it makes it like a real thing. So
Legit.
yeah.
You are legit.
I
You
can't
are.
I can't
No
wait
question.
for your future TED Talk. I can listen to you all day.
Yes.
Yeah, I have been on TEDx.
Ah,
And now I have a goal that by next year, Elenkus should host its own TEDx that is all women. So it should be an all women speaker list. So hopefully
amazing.
we have that up. I've had that dream for a long time because I did my own TEDx. And it was such a big dream because I have videos of me as a 4-year-old practicing my own TEDx.
Ah,
So yes, I have videos of that.
I am
Okay,
so
we'll
My
have to
dad
look it
was
up.
surprised by that.
yeah.
I am not surprised at all.
Not even
Well
a little
done.
bit. That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening or morning or afternoon, or go get some sleep, Raheen, and enjoy
Yeah.
Eid and celebrate. And yeah, thank you so much for everyone for being a part of this. This is great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye,
much, guys.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.